right, friends, let's talk about some practical takeaways on protecting indigeneity. It's kind of a weird word, Caleb.
It really is. It might be better just to say creating indigenous ministry,
right.
or just contextual, appropriate ministry.
Yeah.
A lot of times you think about, we live in such different societies, and every campus, for example, is different, right? You can't say college kids in America. You can't say that. It's just, it's so fractured. And so why wouldn't our ministries reflect those different cultures and subcultures? To me, every campus ministry should look a little bit different. Now, when I think of indigeneity, I think of, okay, we're gonna plant and water, and what grows might look a little different. What kind of variety can you see in college ministries? In other words, what are some examples of a college ministry that reflects the soil in which it's planted? Are you aware of any college ministries that are maybe really different than the typical college ministry?
Oh, absolutely. Even as we're in Richmond, Virginia right now, and we were driving around VCU's campus, and I'm like, we're looking at the things that are going on and the types of students and stuff, and I minister at TCU, and I'm like, man, these are two different people.
Yeah.
College campus, but totally different students, and even within, I can even think of several within Texas that it's just vastly different ministry, because you have typically, like I think about where I minister at, like there's a certain type of student that's actually coming there, and so and it's a smaller private university, and so it's going to have like a pretty certain demographic. Well, if I go to my friends out in Lubbock, Texas at Texas Tech, that's a completely different kind of group of folks. So it really does matter about the people that you're ministering to, and probably not presuming, hey, everyone's like this, or just kind of, I don't know what the right word for it is just kind of, I don't know, just kind of giving a broad stroke to a college student.
Yeah, we don't want to lump them all together. And the reality is, we as adult leaders will never know exactly, like we're always a couple steps behind. I mean, the terminology, you've seen those college ministers who try to be really cool and they use all the new lingo, and it's like, students see through that, right? Like, and even if by the time you've heard about it, it's already over, right? Like, so rather than trying to keep up on this treadmill of culture, let's just invest deeply the gospel in our students and let them take the lead. And I feel like the result will be a ministry that maybe isn't super comfortable for us, but it's native to them, and therefore more appropriate to the next link in the chain, right? The next generation of believers who come behind. And on a college campus, that can be a matter of semesters, not years. So I feel like so much of it is like, you can't ever keep up. So don't try. Don't get on the rat race of trying to be relevant. Let the students drive the relevance, and you drive the gospel.
Man, that is a good word. And I think even with, because you may be here today and listen to this, and you're at your school, you're ministering to students that have a job, they're in school, and then there's some of you that are four-year school, and the students just completely on campus, they're completely doing ministry there, no job or anything like that. They're going to look vastly different. But the thing is you don't have to fret over that. I think what you do is, like just what you said, you minister to them the gospel, and you let them kind of make that relevant to the people in their sphere of influence. And that's really how you can protect that indigeneity, and kind of help the gospel flourish among people. Because I think even with this too, protecting that is not only are you protecting that, but it's also allowing the gospel to flourish. You're not pulling people out of where they're at necessarily. And I think in some instances, some students need to be kind of draw back from a certain community that may be really unhealthy. But
totally.
For the most part, you want to say, here's this ancient message, and let this be expressed and be made relevant to the people that you influence, that you're around.
Well, I think church-based college ministry sometimes gets pinched in the middle, because what you have are well-intentioned leaders in your church, the ones who make the decisions and the ones who decide what gets support and what doesn't, and they have expectations. And so a lot of times a college minister is actually acting almost like a buffer, where you're saying, look, trust me on this, we're staying biblically sound. We're going to look different. We're going to experiment with the expression. We're going to let the students take the lead in that. But I'm going to advocate on behalf of this to the leadership of the church, because the church sometimes doesn't get what's happening among students.
Correct.
And so really you're the go-between of sorts, and you have to kind of stand in the gap.
Yeah, and I would say if you're a minister in a church, don't be frustrated. And that can be a frustrating place, because you feel like you're between two worlds. You're with these college students, and then maybe you have a leader, you have a pastor that maybe doesn't quite understand what you're doing, and you're just going to be in that place. There's if you just try to cut off your pastor, well, then that's not going to be helpful for you. If you cut off the students, that's not going to be helpful for you. So that's just, you're going to be in a place of tension. But I think really, one of the things that we had talked about was, let's say maybe you do meet some students, and maybe they're unchurched, and maybe you're meeting with them at a local coffee shop or just wherever they're at. And you asking them to come to church is probably going to be foreign to them. Like, I've never done that. I don't know if I want to do that. However, they're bringing their friends to a coffee shop, and you're getting to hang out and talk with them. What if that's your expression of, hey, you're just kind of having this group of friends, you're talking with them, the gospel's naturally coming up. And that's still ministry, just because it's not in a Sunday school class or something. And so maybe you need to talk to your leader and just say, hey, this is what's happening. We're going to see how this goes, and just see what kind of runway that.
Well, and placing that ministry on a continuum so that church leaders recognize this is a baby step toward them being healthy members of our church, right? Mm-hmm. Even leaders in our church one day. We just don't push to that. It's going to take some time, especially as more and more students come from a unchurched background. And so it's going to be a longer process, and we need to have patience, and we need to develop students even into church membership. And so I do think that's right. And I think sometimes we get impatient, or we feel the pressure of others who are impatient, and it causes us to want to take shortcuts. And man, that can be a challenge. I also think with protecting indigeneity, the best college ministries I've seen that are really indigenous to the campus in which they're planted, you don't really see the college ministers as much. You see student leaders. And so it's just that discipline of pouring into a handful of people, men and women, young men and women, who then are front and center. They're guiding and leading the ministry. And so when students who are outsiders come or become involved, they may never even know, because you're in the background. And I think that's a challenge, because a lot of us are like, we want to be on the front lines. And there's a balance, obviously. But I think as much as we can, invest in a few who then invest in others. And that's going to lead to longevity. It's also going to get us that relevance that we probably need. And it's going to maximize our workload. It's not, we're not going to burn out, because we're sharing the burden.
I think that's so good. Leading through your students, because again, like you said, the culture, especially on a campus, is changing so rapidly that you can't keep up. You'll never be cool enough. You'll never be relevant enough. But you'll also be, if you're leading through students and kind of protecting that, then what that's going to do is that not only does that increase and expand the influence of your ministry, the gospel ministry happening, but you're going to reach more people, and you're actually going to always be relevant, because you're always reaching the students that are present there on campus. So as you're sitting there thinking about this today, this protecting indigeneity, just think about the students of where they're at. How can you help them flourish where they're at to reach the students that are around them? And let's not be too quick to just kind of pull them from their entire schedule, pull them from everything they do, to kind of put them in our kind of huddle, but really help them thrive in their relationship with Jesus among the people that God has put around them.